Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Bible Lecture Series, Lessons of a Lifetime. Let us introduce our distinguished guest, Dr. Reverend Peter Jeffrey, and as always, Dr. Reverend Robert L. Jeffrey Sr., our pastor and host.
Greetings, everybody. Those of you who are tuned in tonight, we want to welcome our guest, Dr. Peter Ray Jeffrey, who is a graduate of Union Theological Seminary with both a master's and a doctor's program. He's also a minister, former pastor, and a teacher in special education in the school systems in I think Washington D.C. or in the county.
I'm in Taiwan area now.
Okay.
But
I think you have to turn your mic up
teach
some. Your mic has to be turned up some. We can't hear you. Okay. So he's going to be with us tonight. Dr. Jeffrey is going to be with us tonight. He's going to be talking, and we're going to be talking about what scripture are you going to be coming from tonight? What scripture are you?
I'm going to be focused on the 8th chapter of Romans.
Just a little bit, your sound is just a little muffled. We need a little more sound.
Let's see. Let's see. Let me see if I can turn my mic up. Hold on just a minute.
Okay. So those of you who are tuned in, we're going to be talking with my brother. He is my brother, Dr. Peter Ray Jeffrey, out of Richmond, Virginia, tonight. Okay, what did you say your scripture was?
Romans 8.
Romans 8.
Can you hear that?
Yeah, we can hear it. It's I don't know if we can make the sound louder here in the sanctuary. Can you bring him up a little bit? Huh? Can you bring his sound up a little bit? Yeah, his sound.
1, 2, 3,
try
4.
To bring your sound up a little bit.
1, 2, 3, 4. How's that?
Okay.
Testing.
Let's talk a little bit about your professional career. You what church did you pastor in Petersburg?
I pastored the First Baptist Church, West Petersburg. It's actually located in Dinwiddie County, about maybe a mile from the Petersburg city limits. Prior to that, I pastored a church in Westmoreland County, and my first pastorate was in right outside of Roanoke in a little place called Montville, Virginia.
Okay, we still having problems with your sound. It's still a little low. I don't know what you can do to raise your sound on your computer.
I'm looking at all my
I would raise
options.
it all the way up to max.
I got it all the way up as far as it'll go. And
all right, okay.
Let's see.
Okay. So tell us about what you think about what were your experiences in pastoring?
Well, I don't know if you're aware of this, that Mama put me on a bus to Virginia to come to you because you were finishing up your doctorate, and I had just gone into the ministry. Gave me $10 on a one-way ticket to Virginia, and from there I went on and God blessed me to be able to go through undergrad school at Virginia Seminary and College and Roanoke College, and then on to School of Theology of Virginia Union, where I finished with my master's. Later on, I got my doctorate there. And then I began pastoring at, well, not in that sequence, but along the way, I began pastoring at First Baptist Church, West Petersburg. They were a community that was under siege that was during the crack epidemic. And we were able to we were successful at forming a nonprofit group that partnered with the county government, the local government, and businesses and the federal government, and we're able to eliminate a lot of the blighted housing and difficulties in the community. And once we dealt with a lot of the blighted housing, a lot of the drug problems went away. Not all of it. It was still there to a limited degree, but it certainly was not there to the degree it was before. And we were able to use that nonprofit group to bring to connect the church to the community with activities like National Night Out. We sponsored an annual parade and different events that elevated and raised community pride, and it had a positive effect. The community is still going strong. We were able to build houses, renovate houses, and almost 10 houses were built after we finished our work, with people investing in the community. Whereas before, everybody was just trying to stay away from it because of the problems that they had. So we had some success. The church expanded and was able to expand both physically and expanded its footprint. And we just had a blessed time. But after 32 years, I was done. I felt like I could do God's work in other ways, not just in pastoring. There are a lot of ways to serve God, a lot of ways to put His message out. Right now, I'm writing and working, starting a business that will work with churches to help them to work with their youth populations. And there are just a lot of different ways to serve God. Pastoring is certainly one of them. It was an exciting time, but I felt like my services were also, and I still preach. Like I tell people, I retired from pastoring, but I'll never stop preaching. I'll preach as long as my voice is able to speak.
Well, tell us a little bit about the work with the young people and the teaching that you do. How long have you been teaching?
I've been teaching for 30 years. I have my master's degree in working with students with emotional disorders and generally the whole special needs population. But I think that there's a convergence. At least we're going to find out. We're getting ready to. We're working on a contract now with a church in Northern Virginia, where what we're going to do is we're going to take some of the principles and skills that are used in the public schools and apply them to youth ministries, especially ministries with large youth populations that are aligned with a lot of biblical principles. As a matter of fact, I was contemplating this the other day, and the principle we're going to be using that we're borrowing from the public school system is called positive behavioral intervention and supports.
Tell us what that means.
Well, the name of it, we call it PBIS, positive behavioral intervention and support. So basically, what we're saying is, rather than approach children from a don't do perspective, we approach them from the perspective of what we want them to do. What are our expectations? And we measure them not by how much they fail, but rather we measure them by how successful they are. And what we discovered, both in the public school system, and I used it at my church when I was pastor, we had a ministry, we were a small church, congregation of about 130 people, but at one point we had up to 64 kids in our youth ministry. And I often tell people, they call it the lost generation. I say, not lost. They're out there. We just need to go get them. And many of the problems is, once people get the children in the church, they don't know what to do with them. They don't know how to respond to children. And often the strategies they use in responding to children are not successful. they're not they're not proactive. They're often reactive. Child does something and then the adults react. And particularly when you have um, leadership that are not accustomed to working with large groups of children. And we had another program that we had at First Baptist that we call Hoops for Heaven, where we had kids coming in, and we had over 300 kids in that program because
What was the name of the program?
Hoops for Heaven. And what we
What?
did,
Okay.
hoops for Heaven,
Okay. Okay. All
H4H.
right.
And basically what we did was we know that basketball is very popular in the African American community, and so we provided them with a safe space. And we also had food there for them, and this had a dual effect. Number one, we gave them something positive and to go to and to be at a safe space, but also it provided the parents with some relief. And we did that three days out of the week. We provided transportation. We partnered with, we rented the facility where we had the basketball capabilities. So the issue is not whether or not we bemoan and belabor the idea that children are turned off to the church. The problem is not that they're turned off to the church. The problem is that the church still is trying to deal with children with an 18th century mentality, and they have not adapted their ministries. And I'm not saying taking on some of the negativity that we see in current generations. I'm talking about using biblical principles, but presenting them in a way that is more proactive and more positive than it is reactive and negative. And I had, even in my ministry, I had a member tell one of the kids, leave and don't come back. You can't do that. First of all, kids talk to each other. If you reject one child, you're not just rejecting that one child. You're rejecting all the children that they know. And they're going to go out and say, well, I was told don't leave and don't come back. And all it takes is one person in your ministry to have that damaging impact upon your people. So what we're going to be doing is this ministry has over 400 active participants in their youth ministry. And we're going to be training their volunteers, creating a PBIS model, which is too complicated to go into in this segment. But we're going to create a PBIS model. We're going to train the volunteers. We're going to train the staff. And then we're going to teach the children what their expectations are. Let me make this one note before I leave that subject. Often, in past times, like when we were growing up, Bobby, Mom and Daddy told us what we could and could not do at church. Many of the kids we're getting now, they don't know what to do at a church. Many of them, it's the first time they've been in the church. So you can't expect for them to know what to do, and you certainly shouldn't get angry with them when they don't do what you think that they should be doing, because they don't know. If you don't teach them what the expectation is, then how will they know? And then why should you expect them to do something that they don't even know about? So you have to teach them, and you have to provide it consistently and apply it fairly. And if you do that, you can have a very powerful ministry, especially if you have resources to support it.
So how did you develop this passion in your life that to the kind of ministry that you went into in Petersburg? Where did that come from?
Are you referring to the nonprofit group?
Your whole concept of ministry. How did you develop that? How did you develop that?
That was from my seminary training. Seminary helps you to focus. When God calls you, you have a notion of what you want to do and what you want to be, but you don't have a clue. The Bible is a very complex instrument, and you can wind up being all over the place. Seminary helped me to focus how I could take the calling that God had put upon me, and to utilize it, through the use of Scripture and through the use of the structure of the church to actually be a blessing to people. So my hermeneutic, or my way of thinking about interacting with the world and with the church, came out of seminary. I got that clearly from seminary. There's no question about it. And Virginia Union at that time was focused upon the role of the church in community, in its context. And certainly we recognize the ascendancy of God, and the holiness of God, and we recognize those things. But its value comes from how it's manifested in how you impact people's everyday lives. I mean, serving God or shouting about God means absolutely nothing if you're not impacting and making a difference in the lives of His people. And when I say His people, I want to clarify that. We're going to talk about that when we talk and get into Romans. All people are God's people. This notion that God's people are just people in the church is ridiculous. All people are God's people. And I'll remind people, if you look in the 12th chapter of Genesis, God's initial mission for Abraham was to be an example so that all the world might be saved. When Jesus came, He came to save all the world. And this notion that we have this limit. But anyway, all people are God's people. Now, Romans is going to tell us that those who embrace His Spirit become His children, heirs of God and joint heirs with Christ. And we're going to talk about that when we talk.
We'll talk about that in a few minutes. So tell me a little bit about how you grew up. What was growing up in the Jeffrey household like for you?
Chaotic. I was there.
Define that. What does that mean?
Okay. All right. So my y'all don't know, Dr. Jeffrey is one of the older brothers. There were 16 of us, for those of you who don't know.
I might be, but I don't look it.
We're not going to debate that because I'm your brother. I'd be forced to tell the truth. But anyway,
okay.
Anyway, he was there when there was a small number. There was never a small number, but there was. I was there at a time when most of the people were there. When I was in the household,
Well, it was only 2 people born after I left.
3.
No, 1 person.
3.
Who was it?
Roger, Paul, and Annette.
No, Paul was there when I left. Roger was the only one born when I left.
Yeah, and how many years were you there while you had the other 3? Yeah, 1 or 2, right?
I'm not sure.
When you went to Okmulgee, this is easy to figure out.
I stopped counting at number 10.
When you went to Okmulgee, what grade were you in?
When we moved to Okmulgee, well, they
You were
don't
in the 11th
understand
grade.
what you're talking about. We were living in Tulsa.
Right.
I was going to school in Tulsa.
Right.
Which we had lived all of my life. And from New Orleans to Tulsa. I'd lived in Tulsa all my life. I tell people that, but they don't believe it. But we moved when I was a junior in high school.
Okay, so you were a junior. You had 1 year when you were
my
there.
Junior and senior year. Yeah.
Yeah. You were there 2 years, and then you were gone. Well,
yeah, basically. Thank you, Jesus.
Exactly. So the point I'm making is,
all right, what is your point?
My point is, I was there. There was never less than 12 if you include mom and daddy. 12 to 13 people in the household. I was there. Never less. Never. So that was Dean, me, Stevie, and Margaret.
You say that like that's a problem.
It was. I said chaos. So when you're trying to, I mean, God made ways, but for a child, you don't have that faith and hope that your parents have. You don't have that certainty. You're always living in the midst of uncertainty and not knowing. The one thing that I could always depend on and I was certain of, is my parents' love and um, care. But in terms of the day-to-day things that you needed to be able to be a kid, yeah, it was chaotic. I mean, I'm being that's being put nice. We had plenty of love. We had we had plenty of people who cared about us because we had our parents, and then we had people at the church who also cared for us. But those are things that are intangible. In terms of the tangible realities of clothing, food. We always had shelter, but clothing, food, and those extraneous things that especially when you become an adolescent, that are very important. They just weren't there, and so I went out and worked for it. I started selling grit newspapers when I was, I think, about 11 or 12, walking all over Okmulgee. Then I started working at Sonic Drive-In because I was determined I wanted to have the things, and I didn't want to. I didn't know I couldn't. I didn't want to bother mom and daddy because they had enough responsibility. So I felt I went and got it for myself. But yeah, that's how I would describe it. And I think I spent the majority of my adult life coming to where I am now. I like to say that I'm living in my Eden. And in my Eden, that I don't have the chaos. I have certainty, and I have peace. And and that and that has been something that has been long coming. But I don't regret it. I tell my wife all the time, I said, there's nothing in my lifetime I would change. Nothing. Because everything in my lifetime led me to where I am right now. You start changing things up, and you might wind up in a worse place. So I'm
When you say
thankful.
you have certainty, what does that mean to have certainty? That's especially in these times when there is so much uncertainty in our country, with the kind of leadership we're dealing with, and with all the kind of different dynamics of how people are being treated, and in the Black community, in the Hispanic community, and even in Gaza and other places. I mean, how can there be how you say you have certainty?
Well, I think life is concentric circles. So you have your personal space that you have to manage and you have to maintain, and then you have your community space. The place immediately surrounding you, your home, your town, your neighborhood, and it has its own dynamics and its own concerns. And then you have the greater community, the nation, and then beyond the nation, you have the world. So in my space, in that inner circle, in that inner concentric circle, I have uh, certainty and peace. Beyond that, I'm um, I'm disappointed. I was disappointed with the election. I thought it was a horrific outcome, but I'm not surprised at the behaviors because those behaviors have been demonstrated before, and nobody should be shocked or amazed. I think what we should be doing is focusing on what not what is said, because there's a new foolishness said every day. I think we have to focus on what is being done, specifics. What are the facts? What's happening? Because that's going to dictate our future, not what this person says on any given day. And the when you mention places like Gaza and Medicaid, many of those people voted for him, and I'm as disappointed
People, the
and
people
amazed.
about the people who are involved in Medicaid, people in
Yeah,
Gaza had no vote.
well, no, I mean, the people who supported the people in Gaza, in Michigan, and many of the some of the Palestinian communities supported Donald Trump. I, figure that out. I can't. Many Muslims supported Donald Trump, even in spite of the Muslim ban, and in spite of his statements on the campaign trail. I mean, this was not a shocker. So with that, I can't.
Why do you think? Why do you think that people would do that? Why do you think that they did that? Because I know a lot of Hispanics voted for it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Why
And
do you
some of
think
them,
they did?
and some of them are victims
Why do you
of.
think people vote against their self-interest?
Oh man, that requires a tome. I'm certainly not
I mean, what
knowledgeable
is your
enough.
opinion?
In my opinion, I think that they were successfully. There were two issues. Well, certainly African Americans are always a famous uh, straw man that politicians use to frighten people. That goes without saying. Black people this, black people they taking their jobs. They want stuff that they're not entitled to. That happens often. I remember the Jesse Helms commercial sometimes back. Um, that it was that, and then you had the issue with the LGBTQ community, the trans uh, uh, healthcare that people are receiving, and I understand that those ads ran nonstop in Pennsylvania. And James Carville was famous to um, to remark that um, Pennsylvania is Philadelphia and Pittsburgh with Alabama in between. So, you're running those types of ads, you're going to get them to vote against their interests. And unfortunately, that's happening. This is an administration that cares nothing for the poor, that cares nothing for the dispossessed, that cares nothing for those who are in need. Matter of fact, they consider it to be it's an old puritanical idea that providence is reflected in your wealth. This goes back to Puritanism, that if you are rich and successful, that is an indication of God's favor. And therefore, if you are poor and needy, it is not. And it certainly ignores a lot of the scriptures. You have to ignore a lot of scriptures in order to get to that hermeneutic, but that's where they are. That's where the evangelicals are. And they're basically all over the place. I think they just want to support Trump because I don't know, because they like WWF. I don't know. I haven't figured it out.
You appointed the wife of the head of that
which is
Department of Education.
That's a pretty good indication of the connection with WWF. I mean, he's actually appeared on that. And a lot of African Americans are addicted to WWF. They watch it and they actually believe the foolishness that goes on there is real. And that chaotic trash talking, that's normal for WWF. And so they identified with it. They identified with his pugilistic style. I mean, to me, during the debate, when he says they're eating the dogs and cats, if I wasn't through with him before that, I was through with him then. But for many of those people, they actually, oh yeah, they must be. He said it, So, I don't know what you want me to say. I don't have an explanation for why people bought into that. They did. I'm not one. I think an election is an election. Once it happens, it happens. You may think somebody stole it unless you have overwhelming evidence. Be quiet and accept the results. The election is the election. He's the president. Let's move on. Prepare for the midterms. And hopefully, they won't be able to gerrymander enough states and steal enough representative positions so that it reflects the will of the country. We'll see how that happens.
Let's talk about the chapter 8.
Okay. So I often call Romans the gospel according to Paul.
Which,
because
in case somebody has tuned in after we started, we're talking from Romans 8, which is the scripture that Dr. Peter Jeffrey is going to be uh, teaching from. All right, let's go with that.
so Romans, in my opinion, is the gospel according to Paul. It's one of the most powerful books of the Bible. It's one of my favorite, and it wasn't always. When I was first started preaching, Paul was difficult to preach. I didn't get it. I got him better once I saw Pastor. You know.
That's a whole different thing. Why I want to ask you.
Oh,
All right, we
yeah.
won't go there then.
Oh yeah.
We
Once
won't
you
go
stop,
there. Well, go ahead.
yeah, you made a whole lot more sense once I saw the Pastor.
Okay. All right.
And Romans in particular, it is just a phenomenal book in which he basically lays out the case for Christianity and faith in Christ. But Romans 8 is, I think, the heart of the book. Because he prefaces that you have to know about Romans 7. And I want to get into Romans 7 because we'll be all night doing that. Basically, in Romans 7, he says that the law is nothing wrong with the law, but when you use the law to measure us, we come up short. That we are incapable of meeting the requirements of the Mosaic law. And I think that's ironic when you see people wanting to put the Decalogue in the in public schools. You know, I think we've already proven that that's not effective. And
Well, you know, some of the people who want to put in there are themselves have been proven that they are not.
hello,
That they are not. They're not even living up to it themselves. So.
I mean, I get it. I tell people all the time, you're going to say the Ten Commandments. Well, then you need to stop taking pictures. You need to stop taking selfies. You need to take the paintings off the walls in your house, because according to the second commandment, you are not to make unto yourself any graven image or any likeness of anything above the earth or under the earth or in the earth. And I'm like, come on now, you don't follow or practice the Sabbath because you go to church on Sunday. That's not the Sabbath day. Sabbath day is from sundown on Friday to sundown on Saturday. You know, please give me a break. And that we're not even into Levitical law. So anyway, the point being is that
I think you're freezing a little.
Paul makes this. Okay, am I right now?
Go ahead.
Okay.
No,
Paul makes the argument that we're not capable. And he comes to the exclamation in I believe it's verse 22, 21, 22, where he says, "Oh wretched man that I am, who can save me from this body of death? The things I would do, I don't do, and the things I shouldn't do, I find myself doing." And he says, I can only be saved by the power of Jesus Christ. So Romans 8 is a clarification of that exclamation, if I can say. All right. So he starts out with Romans 8, said, there is no condemnation now for those who live in union with Christ. So basically he's saying, yeah, we ain't no good, but if we're in union with Christ and we adopt Christ's spirit, then...
What does it mean to be in union with Christ? Oh, you said, go ahead. You're explaining it. I'm sorry.
No. I'm glad you asked that question because it pulls me down to, so being in union with Christ. I think Christ is not about going to church on Sunday. Being in union with Christ and being in the Spirit is not about going to church on Sunday morning, shouting, falling over the pews. That's not being in union with Christ. Being in union with Christ is adopting the principles and precepts that he taught. As I told people at the church, I said, look, Jesus healed people. Yes, I don't think anybody would. Well, there are people argue with that. Nobody who is Christian would argue with that. Jesus healed people, but he only touched, let's say, thousands, and that's being charitable during his lifetime. Only thousands, but his words, what he taught, has touched billions. It's the words that have value more so than the notion that I can touch somebody and they get out their wheelchair and shout. If I can get somebody to change from being angry and hateful and spiteful, I don't do that by touching them on the forehead or spitting on a prayer cloth, and that's not how I change them. I change them through his words of love and fellowship, his words of liberation, his words of deliverance. So being in union with the Spirit requires you to be aligned with the words that Jesus taught. That's the simplest way I can put it. And what he says, and it is absolutely true, he says this. He says, if you follow the Spirit, then you will have life. If you follow the flesh, you will have death. It's a very, very binary choice.
Yeah.
Now, and what he's talking about, he's not talking about, somebody's gonna come and shoot you, or if you life that there's no chance of you dying. What he's saying is that the time that you have in this existence, however much time there is, first of all, let me clarify something. I don't think death is evil. not the physical. I'm not talking about the physical death. I don't think dying is evil. If dying was evil, then Jesus was, was a sinner. No, dying is not evil. Dying is natural. Everybody's going to die at some point. So dying is not evil. So if you embrace the Spirit, if you're in union with the Spirit, you will have life. And even if that involves death, you will still be alive.
Yeah. If it involves, I think the whole concept of sacrifice has to be thrown in there.
Yes,
if you walk in the Spirit, you have life, but you can sacrifice yourself.
You can give yourself. You can give your life
for the sake of the Spirit, or because of the call of the Spirit to death. Which gives you life beyond
absolutely.
that. Yeah.
Sometimes being in union with the Spirit leads you to death.
Yeah.
Not
you have to die.
Not the death that Paul is talking about. Paul is talking about an emptiness, a void that people who pursue just whatever they want to or what makes them happy, they only care about themselves. There is a void, there's an emptiness in them and a darkness because they have no love in them. Love, it brings light. That's what John is talking about in St. John, in the Gospel of John. He's talking about the word, which he later describes as Jesus and later on describes as love. It brings light. And people who don't have that love, they're not in conjunction with the Spirit. They have nothing but darkness inside of them. And I feel sorry for them. The reason why I say that I have peace now, because there was a time when I was outside of God's will. I was outside of the Spirit, even as I was pastoring, because I made decisions that I thought were the right decisions. But they were the right decisions, but the choices that I used to get to that right decision were not in God's will. And it was difficult. It was
they were decisions not guided by the Spirit. Not guided, which is not guided by the Word of God, words of Jesus Christ, which is a manifestation of the Spirit. Yeah,
exactly.
I agree.
I was not following those words. The words.
I don't agree that you were not following. I'm just trying to.
No, I'm saying that. I'm
just trying.
I said that, and in fact, I said that to myself when I was there, and what I said was, while I'm outside of His Spirit, while I'm outside of His will, I am subject to anything to happen to me. And guess what? A lot of it did.
Yeah, I know. I've been there, brother. Been there.
My being here is a testament to the fact of God's grace and forgiveness, because because any one of those times, any one of those things could have taken me out, both emotionally, spiritually, and physically. But by the grace of God, I'm in this good place, not because I'm so smart or I'm so wise. I'm in this good place because of God's grace. So that's what he's talking about in the first part of that text. And he comes to that conclusion that I referred to earlier, where he says that because you have embraced the Spirit, because you're in union with the Spirit, that gives you genetic relationship with God.
Now, you're gonna have to explain what you mean by that, because I don't understand what you mean.
Well, he says that it makes you an heir of God and a joint heir with Christ.
Okay. Okay.
That's
So
spiritual genetics.
you're talking about spiritual genetics now.
Yeah,
You're talking about
spiritual.
the spirit. The spirit has genetics. The
Yes.
spirit has. The spirit
Yes.
has
Okay. Well, let's
composition.
look at DNA. DNA.
I'm just trying to flesh it out. I'm just
Okay,
trying to
no problem.
understand.
DNA has it has genes, and in the genes it has traits.
Yeah.
The traits govern the way you look, even your behaviors.
Yeah.
The way you walk, the way you talk, the intonation of your voice. Those are traits. It's in your DNA.
Yeah.
So if that changes in me, if I don't, like, you know how the preacher used to say, I looked at my hands.
Yeah.
And my hands look new.
Yeah.
I've gone through a genetic transformation.
Yeah. A spiritual
genetic transformation, where I am now,
which is manifested in your flesh. It is manifested in your flesh, but it's not of the flesh.
It is. It's a spiritual. It's a spiritual. It's a spiritual experience, but it has a physical outcome.
Yeah.
Because I looked at my hand. I started to walk. I started to talk and had a brand new talk. So it's summed up in that text that Paul says. Paul says that we are heirs of God.
Yeah.
And joint heirs with Christ. And he also talks about the suffering part. And I like what he said in the 18th verse. He says that because of this, we're going to go through suffering, because the people who wrote Paul, the people who recorded this, were going through horrific suffering. They were being persecuted. They were being hounded. They were being fed to lions. They were being crucified upright, upside down. They were just being destroyed, both by the Jews and by the Romans. They were both after him. And he says something that I thought was very profound in verse 18. He says, I reckon that what we suffer at this point cannot be compared at all with the glory that's going to be rewarded to us. That's an awesome statement to make, especially for people going through stuff.
So what does that mean?
Well, it's saying that whatever you're going through for the sake of the cross or for the sake of Christ, it cannot be compared to the glory you're going to get. And you look at that text and you think, oh, okay, well, we'll get it after a while, by and by, when the morning comes, And that's the assumption that people make. And actually, that's an incorrect assumption. Because, as I said, some of the things that we were able to accomplish at First Baptist through the nonprofit, I think that my blessings, and not only that, the suffering of my parents that they went through and the sacrifices that they made. I think that in this life, I'm reaping the benefits of it.
Yeah, I think we all are.
Yeah, it's partially God's grace, but it's also his appreciation for their sacrifices and some of the sacrifices I made. I got to believe that, because it doesn't have to be this way.
I think that says a lot. That whole idea, that whole point also applies to why many of the children are so lost. It's because they're not in a position to reap the blessings of their fathers and mothers and reap the blessings of their grandmothers, because they were not given over to obedience to the Spirit.
But it gives it. One other thing I used to say when I was preaching is, folk don't come to Jesus unless they're desperate. This gives them an opportunity in the midst of their desperation. It gives us an opportunity because they're desperate, because they've tried everything and they have not found answers. It gives us an opportunity to give them a place to come to, to let them know that I know you're desperate. I know that you're at your wit's end. I know you've run out of answers and you've tried everything and it's not working.
Yeah.
That's the whole purpose for the church. The purpose for the church is not to stand there with your nose in the air, thinking how much better than you are than people. The purpose of the church is to be a place that when people get desperate, they have a place to come. I'm going to be preaching the sermon about the prodigal son on Sunday. He didn't go home until he was desperate.
Yeah.
he, he had lost it. He didn't go home when he still had some coins in his pocket. He didn't go home until he was eating pig slop.
Yeah.
Folk ain't coming, and the reason why they won't come to Jesus until they're desperate is because there's so much out there saying it ain't real, it don't work, it's an illusion, and it's like the four lepers outside the city. And I know I'm making a reference. Some of y'all may not get this, but
No. Go ahead. Yeah.
Four lepers outside the city. They were desperate. They said, you know what? if we go in the city, we're gonna die. If we sit here, we're gonna die. We may as well go out to the enemy camp. After all, the only thing they can do is kill us. We're gonna die anyway. And that's when people say, you know what? What have I got to lose? And they come into the church, and then all people can do is criticize them, look down on them, challenge, expect them to be better than they are, and they've been in the church for 40 and 30 years. But anyway, that's a whole different story. Moving on. So Paul moves on after he start talking about hope. Now, I I could spend all day talking just about that four-letter word, hope. Because I think that it is the North Star that gets us out of despair.
Explain what you mean by that.
Despair is the worst condition of humanity. Despair says to you, this is your lot. It's never going to change. And there's nobody coming to rescue you. And you can't rescue yourself. So you may as well accept what we're doing to you and what we're taking from you. Hope says, and there's a word I would use here, but it would be inappropriate for this. That's not true. Hope says no. And Dr. Jeffrey, I have come up with a device called the Hope Triangle that can actually calculate how long it takes for you to get from your hope until you change your reality.
Well, tell us about the Hope Triangle. What is that?
Okay, so I can't explain it in 13 minutes. And that I'll tell you
all
what.
right. That's another time.
I'll spend the whole time working on telling you about the Hope Triangle. But anyway,
okay. So the next show, I'm going to have you back, and the conversation the next time will be the Hope Triangle.
I'd be happy.
It'll be the whole conversation. Okay,
Go
ahead. Go ahead. Finish what you're saying.
So he talks about hope and he brings up hope. And what's very vitally important for people to understand is that people say, well, I don't see it. Well, you're not supposed to see hope, what you're hoping for. That's the whole point of hope. Hope is about what you don't see, but it's possible.
Yeah.
And that is the power of our God, that he can make what is not feasible or not reasonable possible.
Yeah.
And
so hope is not about what you see, but it's about the possibilities.
The possibility
that you don't see, or that even sometimes you can see.
You can't see. You won't see it because if you can see
you
it,
hope for it.
If you can see it, you don't need
to hope for
it. You already got it.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: our faith provides us, and once we get into the Hope Triangle, I'll show how that works. Our faith provides two things: the efficacy by which we achieve the details of moving toward hope, our hope, of making our hope a reality.
What do you mean? You
And
say the efficacy. Explain what you mean by that.
the praxis, the function. For
Okay.
example,
All right.
the ability to do something,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and actually those things you can see. You just don't see the relationship it has to achieving your hope,
Yeah.
or you don't think that doing enough of it is going to lead you to your hope.
Yeah.
But your faith says, no, do this. Just do it. Like when when Elijah told Naaman to go wash him in the Jordan.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just go do it. And well, do it 7 times. All right.
Yeah.
And that's the efficacy of faith, of
Yeah.
hope. All right. But anyway, so moving right along because we only got 10 minutes left. But so Paul wraps this up. Now, I actually preached my senior sermon on the ending of Romans 8, and the topic of the sermon was "Don't let nothing stop you." And the text says that he says in verse 35, who then can separate us from the love of Christ? Can trouble do it, or hardship, or persecution, or hunger, or poverty, or danger, or death? He said, no, and all these things will have complete victory. And then he says, for I am certain that nothing. Now, this is the Good News translation. The King James doesn't say it like this way. I like the Good News. Good News is much more accurate. All right.
Okay.
He said, for I am certain that nothing can separate us from his love, neither death nor life, neither angels nor, and which are all negative words to suggest that. And what I discovered in preparing for that sermon is that nothing has substance. It's not that nothing doesn't exist. Nothing is just irrelevant. For example, somebody will say, oh, did you see that car? And they say, I didn't see nothing. Well, they saw the car, but they didn't see any relevance to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So, and there are things that like people who didn't vote, they didn't see, it was nothing to them. Vote was nothing to them. But now that nothing that they didn't use is affecting them. What was irrelevant to them is now becoming very germane and important.
Yeah.
So nothing can stop you.
Yeah.
Nothing can destroy you. Nothing
like
can
nothing to eat.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't starve to death.
Yes, you can. Because nothingness has and I related this to creation, that it says that the earth without form and void. It was chaotic, and the notion is that, and notwithstanding, the scientific explanations for beginning of all that is, at some point it was all irrelevant. It gained its relevance by our existence. When God created us, everything became relevant, because if you got 2 rocks on a hill, they have no relevance unless somebody comes and picks that rock up and throws it at somebody.
Or just picks it up.
Or just picks it up.
Yeah.
We make things relevant. Humanity makes things relevant. We give it purpose. We give it meaning. That's our whole, and I know that that's very anthrocentric, but forgive me, I'm a human, so now I'm sure if you have a deer who thinks, they probably think, no, it's deer centric, but
I didn't catch that. I didn't catch that. What'd you say?
I said I know that's anthrocentric, that I'm thinking that people are the most valid, important thing in creation. And I'm sure that if a deer could think and write down his thoughts, he may have a different way of looking at it, but he didn't. So until he can write, we, I'm gonna go with we're the most important beings. That we have
So you're suggesting only people who can write are the most important?
I didn't say that. You said that, but
Well, I'm just trying to figure it out. Why don't we just say all God's creatures are important?
all God's creatures are important. But
Okay.
but in terms of in terms of validity and authenticity of what has relevance, it comes,
Yeah.
I think, from our viewpoint, and it comes from our thinking. And so we have to be careful not to let the nothingness, the what appears to be unimportant things, ultimately impede. For example, there are people who may think that may not have any feelings about what's happening to people in Gaza because they don't know them, or what's happening to the people in Sudan, or what's happening to people all around the world. And what we don't realize is if we turn a blind eye to their predicaments, it may come a day when we're in a similar predicament. I can remember a time in the South Korean government, South Korean legislature, they used to break out in fights. And people would look at that and, oh, that could never happen here. And yet we're on the verge of it. Well, I mean, they actually stormed the Capitol. And I can see a day when politicians, there was a time when nobody would think that anybody would ever interrupt the president during the State of the Union address. But then we had it starting with Smith, with Barack Obama and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert in during Biden's administration. We're not that far from fistfights in the legislature. We cannot get to the point where we are so arrogant and so certain about our peace that we don't recognize that the most insignificant things can come along and disrupt it.
Yeah.
And yes, I am very happy with my peaceful existence here, but I remain engaged. And that's why I'm developing this whole idea of PBIS. And I hope to be able to teach it not just to this church, but hopefully be able to export it to others. Because if we don't get our children, we're gonna live in a land of people who have their interest is going to be led by influencers on social media. Some of them who are only in their teens and 20s, they never lived, they never experienced anything, and people are following what they say.
Yeah.
And I'm like, my God, but they're doing it because there's a void from us. We haven't figured it out yet. The school systems haven't figured it out. We're still using 18th century, 19th century methodology for 21st century minds. And we're being hammered. So we got to figure it out. And these things that appear to be unimportant, they can separate us if we don't get a handle on it.
Yeah. So that's why faith is important. That's why hope is important.
Absolutely.
To
Absolutely.
step into that void and to make sure that the just lives by faith. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's why I would like to do that lesson on the Hope Triangle, because what I want people to know is this: yes, the challenges are significant. I'll be the first to tell you. But we have the power and the capacity through our own critical thinking and through the power of God to solve these problems. We can't throw up our hands.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
We can't throw up our hands in despair. We have to put our minds to it and have faith that God will, if we start it, I promise you, He will give you answers along the way that you don't have right now. That happens to me all the time. I step out and start something, and then critical pieces that I didn't have, didn't even know that I didn't have, they pop up as I move toward my goal. And those are things that we can elucidate a lot more once we talk about the hope triangle, because that's what that's all about. Because taking your hope and at some point your hope becomes your new reality. And once you've achieved that, guess what? You have a new hope. Because whatever hope you have that you've changed, there's always something that needs to be made better. So you're constantly in the process.
So as we close tonight, is there is a couple of is there anything that you want to tell somebody who may be up against the whole fact of having nothing and dealing with the whole concept of the nothingness that you talked about and struggling with that?
When you originally asked me to do this, the first verse that popped in my mind was 1 Corinthians 2:9. And that is, eye has not seen, nor ear heard, neither has it entered into the hearts of men, the things that God has in store for those that love him. Not in the world to come. I'm talking about down here, right?
In this world, yeah.
In this world.
The things that God has prepared for those
who
love him. So the key here is, no matter what you're up against, no matter what you're going through, you have to, going back to the first verse in 8th chapter of Romans, you have to be in the Spirit, love the Spirit, be a part of the Spirit, love the Word of God, love the truth of God. And like he says, it has not yet appeared what God is, what you shall be, and what things shall be. And that's why it is, as you do this, you do this with the hope that God is going to be true to his word, and the faith that you know he's true to his word. And it's going to be okay. God's going to work it out.
Well, you give me a chance.
I think that's great. I think we've come to a great conclusion here, and thank you.
Sure, it was my pleasure. I love, like I said, I retired from pastoring. I retired from being a preacher.
I might make you a regular.
Oh yeah, I would love to do. We talk about PBIS. We can talk about the Hope Triangle.
I think that next time, maybe sometime in the upcoming months, maybe in October, we can talk about the Hope Triangle.
I'd love to.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Our guest tonight has been Dr. Peter Ray Jeffrey, who is my brother and who is a scholar and a man of great faith. And we appreciate you coming on tonight and being a part of our Bible study.
I'm going to remind you that you call me a scholar when we get into family gatherings.
Well, you are a scholar. You're a man who thinks through everything he says, and that's the essence. That's the essence of what it means to be a scholar.
Thank you. God bless.
We won't talk about the levels right now. God bless you.
All right,
God bless you.
Y'all
have a good night. Tell your wife I said hi.
I certainly will.
All right. God bless you. And until next time, until next Thursday. Oh, I won't be here next Thursday. I'll be in Minnesota. I'll be lecturing and preaching the week in Minnesota on the kingdom. So I won't be here next Thursday, but I'll be here the Thursday following. And our guest the Thursday following, we'll announce it on Sunday. God bless you.
All right.
And God keep you tonight. Good night. See you next Thursday.